What if I were to tell you that a solution for things like declutter paralysis, saving things for someday syndrome, or impulse shopping is already sitting right smack in front of you in your home? I'm talking about shopping your stash, shopping your closet, your basement, your attic, whatever space you might have, but maybe not in the way that a lot of people talk about it, just to save money or to avoid new purchases. When you do it with purpose, shopping your stash can transform how you make decisions, enjoy your products, and help you to use items that you've been avoiding without knowing exactly why. By the end of this video, you'll know how to do things like declutter without regret, actually use those special occasion products, and maybe even fall in love with some forgotten favorites. Plus, I'll share the exact method that I use for stash shopping with purpose. It's the same approach that I use to avoid over-purchasing things, to make smarter decluttering decisions, and to start enjoying my stuff again. I'll give you the full breakdown later, but first, let me show you what makes this kind of stash shopping so different. And if you're new to this series, the Adagio Sessions, welcome. Adagio is just a musical term meaning slow, and here we use it to talk about slowing down to take a closer look at our relationship with stuff. I'm Stephanie, a former over-purchaser, and makeup was my personal kryptonite. Nowadays, I try to shop with more intention. But whether you are a collector, a minimalist, somewhere in between, or just someone who's trying to enjoy their stuff without that constant temptation to buy more, you're in the right place. I think a lot of us are familiar with the concept of shopping our stash in the context of saving money or avoiding shopping temptation. I know that I am currently on a full-out no-buy right now, and one of the rules for my no-buy is absolutely no browsing. Not online, not offline, not anywhere. So if I just happen to see something that tempts me, one of the ways that I avoid browsing and researching that thing that has piqued my interest is to go back into my own collection and just start swatching my own makeup. And that sort of thing is the beginning of shopping your stash, but it's more effective if we do it with more intention. So let's go back to the extreme basics just for a second. What is your stash? It is what you already own. So what is shopping your stash? It's treating the collection of things that you already own as a shop where you see each individual item as something that you get to pick out for today. But when I say shopping your stash with purpose, what exactly does that mean? It's not just picking out something because it happened to catch your eye today, or choosing something only because you haven't used it in a while and you miss it, although those are great reasons to shop your stash. I mean choosing things intentionally. So maybe you have a beautiful summer dress that you've been waiting for the perfect event to wear it to, but really, you would just love to wear it. So instead of saving it for a special occasion, you choose to shop your closet for that specific item. Or maybe there are items that you've been avoiding or ignoring for whatever reason, whether you're aware of the reason or not. Or maybe there's certain things that you feel guilty about and you want to explore that. So basically, you select an item or two or three, or several if you want to. I often create a whole makeup bag, and you commit to using those items for a certain period of time. It's kind of like visiting a pop-up shop that's curated by past you. Your past self chose those items for a certain reason, and now is the perfect time to explore what that reason was and if it's still relevant to you today. It's about moving those items to the front of your daily routine and paying attention to what they reveal. I'll walk you through the full method later in the video, but first, let me show you what changed for me when I started doing this. Shopping your stash can actually solve one of the most paralyzing problems that I and maybe you have, and that is decluttering without regret. I have a long history of agonizing over what to let go. I am the queen of declutter paralysis. Between the guilt of sunk costs, scarcity mentality, and the fear that I might get rid of something I might want later on, I always found it very difficult to make confident decisions. But when I started shopping my stash with intention, I really surprised myself. I began deliberately choosing items that I rarely reached for and committed to using them for a longer period of time. And suddenly I began to understand why I wasn't using those things. Now, sometimes it was just because I would get distracted by equally beautiful things in my collection, which is a sign that I had been buying too much because I didn't have time to enjoy everything. But other times, I discovered that there was a very specific reason that I had been unconsciously avoiding some of these things. I just wasn't aware of it. For example, I recently tried this with a Lisa Eldridge lipstick that had been languishing in my collection. And I initially assumed that the reason I wasn't reaching for it very often was just because I was distracted by all my other beautiful lippies. However, once I had that in my monthly makeup bag and I was using it almost every day, I realized there was a reason I wasn't reaching for it, and that's because the color intimidated me. And this is where you all get to laugh at me, because this is the color. Does anybody think that this is a particularly intimidating color? Probably not. But I am just used to non-color. I'm a beige babe. And this has a peachiness and a warmth to it that's just very present. And it intimidated me, and that was why I hadn't been wearing it. Now, that could potentially be a reason to declutter it, but as I was wearing it more and more, I realized I actually think that I like the color. And when I went back to some of my more muted lipsticks, I realized that I missed this one. So that was a clear sign for me that this is a good product to keep and that I will probably reach for it more often now that I know what it does for my complexion. But a couple of years ago, I did the same thing with a Lancome lipstick. It was a beautiful color. I just wasn't wearing it and I wanted to figure out why. So I did the same thing. I put it in a monthly makeup bag, and that's when I realized that after days and days of wearing it, that my lips were drying out. And that lip product was the culprit. I had never noticed it before because I had never worn it back to back so often, but also because it was a creamy satin formula, which is normally a pretty hydrating sort of thing. So there just must be an ingredient in that formula that doesn't jive with my body chemistry. The issue hadn't been big enough for me to consciously dislike the product, but it was big enough for me to subconsciously avoid using it. And once I brought that issue to the surface by shopping my stash and using it for a while, all of a sudden I had a very concrete, logical reason to declutter it, and that made it so much easier. So I was able to disinfect the product and then give it to someone who could potentially enjoy it a whole lot more than I'd be able to. But intentional stash shopping can also help solve another problem, and that is special occasion syndrome. You know, the one where you're saving a beautiful foundation or lipstick or eyeshadow for some sort of big moment or special event only to let it expire in a drawer. I used to baby my Estee Lauder Double Wear foundation like it was sacred. Meanwhile, every day I was using a drugstore skin tint, and the skin tint wasn't bad. It just didn't last as long and didn't look as good as the Estee Lauder did. So when I put that Estee Lauder in my makeup bag for the month and I used it every day, it was a game changer because I realized my skin can look good every single day. Why should I use a second-rate product when I have the premium version of it just rotting away in a drawer? It takes me ages to use up makeup, so why was I saving it? And I have a theory. I go into more depth in it in this video here, which I'll also link in the show notes. But basically, I used to follow influencers who would have these massive beauty rooms with drawers upon drawers of foundation. And as they would take us through these tours, they would pluck one foundation out from the masses and say something like, "This is my favorite foundation. I only wear it to special events." And some part of me must have thought that was a good idea because back then I was a sheeple. I'm now graduated. Now I'm a people. But back then I was like, if these makeup experts have a special event foundation, I should probably also use my favorite foundation as a special event one to save money because I don't want to run out of it. But I'm telling you right now, I could use that Estee Lauder Double Wear foundation every single day for 2 years and I would probably still have some left in the bottle. So I don't need to save it. And it's not just makeup. I also do this with things like candles. What about you? Is there anything that you save for someday? All I know is that this is a habit that is very deeply ingrained in my soul now, and shopping my stash is helping me to get over it. But wait, there's more. A third stash shopping benefit, which is that you better learn what actually works for you and why. I recently did this with a YSL powder that I had purchased specifically for review purposes. After I was done done with the testing phase for that review, I ended up just reverting back to my old favorites because the YSL powder just didn't beat them out in the comparison. But I decided I wanted to put it in my monthly makeup bag because I wanted to solidify my opinion about it. And so I used it pretty much every day for a month. And that's when I just really learned why the powder isn't for me. Because it is a good powder. It's finely milled, it absorbs oil well, it sits beautifully on the skin. But on my skin, it doesn't have a blurring quality or add any sort of special ethereal glow or have a special sort of finish. And those are all things that I personally expect from a luxury powder. That kind of confidence of knowledge can only really be gained through long-term regular use. And for a scaredy cat declutterer like myself, I really do like to quadruple check my opinions. So now I just really do not feel the need to make space for that YSL powder in my personal makeup collection or my routine, and that kind of detailed clarity is invaluable to me. But finally, let's not underestimate the pure joy of rediscovery. I recently shopped my stash for my Natasha Denona I Need a Warm palette just because I wanted to use it more, and every single time I opened my makeup bag, it sparked joy. So there was no productivity goal, just presence. And that's what this is all about, enjoying the things that I have. So if you're wondering how to do this in your own life, here's what's been working for me. Step 1 is to choose your focus category. Pick one area that tempts you to overbuy, or maybe where you're feeling a little stuck and overwhelmed with what you already have. For me, that's makeup in general. For you, it could be that broad, or it could be a little narrower. So it could be just lipsticks or just perfumes, or it could be shoes or cookbooks or shirts. It can really be anything. The most important thing is that the focus area should be relevant to you right now. Step 2, to simplify matters, we'll say select 3 items, but do it with purpose. For example, I put together a whole makeup bag, maybe with 10 or 15 items in it, but I might just choose 3 for specific reasons. So in this scenario, I might choose a product that I've been saving for someday because I've decided I don't want to do that kind of thing anymore. So shopping my stash for that item for that specific reason will help me actively change a behavior I've decided that I no longer want to engage in. I might also choose a product that I've been feeling guilty about because I haven't been using it. Maybe I spent a lot of money on it, or maybe it's just been sitting unused for ages. Whatever the reason, the goal is to stop feeling guilty about it by actually giving it a fair chance. And I might choose one product that I'm unsure about because my goal is to only keep things that genuinely add value to my life the way I live right now. So if I'm unsure about a product because I'm not entirely clear on its pros and cons for me personally, the best thing I can do is get into the nitty-gritty details of it, see how it works, why it might be good, why it might not be good, so that I can logically weigh those pros and cons and then ultimately decide whether it's worth taking up the limited amount of space that I have in my collection, or if it might be better off getting used by someone else. Once you've shopped your stash for those items, take a brief pause and consider whether you might need to continue shopping your stash for some peripheral items that help you use what you just shopped your stash for. And the reason is because sometimes the things that we use very seldomly get used rarely only because you have to use them in conjunction with very certain things. So for example, if I were to shop my stash for a vivid blue eyeshadow palette, which just isn't something I wear all that often, I would want to make sure that I have things like the correct primer and maybe some fitting eyeliners to hand, just to make sure that I give myself the best possible chance of truly experiencing the palette in the best possible way for me. Step 3 is to take all of those items and make them visible. I personally take the items I shop my stash for and put them in my current makeup bag or front and center on my vanity. Visibility makes such a big difference in this context. Oftentimes, I won't reach for something unless I see it. Step 4 is to use all of the items you chose regularly, but not rigidly. I aim to use mine several times throughout the month, enough for me to really gather my thoughts about them and pay attention to the way I feel when I use them. Do I look forward to using these things, or am I forcing it? And if I am forcing it, despite the fact that I have made the items accessible and I've chosen complementary products to make them easy to use, maybe that's a sign that the product just isn't for me. Step 5 is to reflect honestly. By the end of the month, I usually have surprising clarity. I've rediscovered some things that I love, I figure out why other things aren't working for me, and I develop a more confident personal sense of what works for me and why. That's not only great for deepening my enjoyment of what I already have, but it's also a huge help for making wiser future purchases. That's it. No spreadsheets, no checklists, unless of course you like that sort of thing, then feel free to add it. But basically, this method is just supposed to invite some curiosity, clarity, and self-compassion. If you want more of this mindset in real time, I'm doing daily reflections for No by July over on Patreon. You do not need to pay for a membership to read those. They are completely free for all members, including my free patrons. So I'll put a link to that collection in the show notes so you can check it out. So here's what I want to leave you with. Shopping your stash with intention isn't just about saving money or avoiding temptation. It's also a powerful way to successfully declutter, to use and enjoy your favorite things right now, and to better understand what works for you and why. So this week's challenge is to pick a category that tempts you. Makeup, clothing, books, games, skincare, whatever it might be, and then shop your stash like it's a store curated by past you. Choose one product to enjoy, one product to test for decluttering, and one product to get to know better. Treat your collection like a treasure trove and not a museum of guilt. Next week, we'll discuss why enough never feels like enough and how to shift that feeling. So subscribe if you don't want to miss it. I post new videos every week to help you shop slower and love what you already own more. Here's an example of one. Thanks for hanging out, and thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, including my lovely Adagio angels, for making conversations like this possible. And I hope we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.